Hello, hi, good evening, hi. Wow. Why does Trump want Greenland? Why does he want the 211 million rare earth minerals, the earth? Why does USA seem to be talking about taking over, putting this plan together? And in today's video, I want to talk to you about possibly why, and what's happening in terms of Greenland, rare earth. Because beneath the wilderness, this icy wilderness, lies one of the most valuable untapped resources, rare earth minerals, and now the world's biggest power are circling around, kind of like vultures in a way. So could the US be planning a takeover? Could Greenland become the next battleground in the global rare earth world, for example? Let's break this down. I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but let's look at both sides of the coins here and see what is happening here. Because I started doing my researches into the different wealthiest minds around the world. So it's become an eye-opener to me. I've always seen jewelry as something as beautiful to wear, not as something that could cause war, for example. Now, Greenland holds some of the largest reserves of rare earth minerals, and that's outside of China, for example. These minerals are critical for our smartphones that we use, our electronic vehicle batteries that we use, should I say, military weapons, AI chips, and more. The world dependence on these rare earths are skyrocketing. Now, China controls around 85% of the global rare earth supply. But the West also wants an alternative. They don't want to just rely on one person, and I certainly wouldn't want to rely on one person. I would want to rely on myself to really get what I want, for example. So companies like Greenland Minerals Limited and there's Tanbreez Mining, they have been pushing forward rare earth extractions, but Greenland strict environmental laws have slowed projects down. So what is the US interest in this, in Greenland? Now, President Trump openly expressed his interest in buying Greenland, calling it a large real estate deal. So, fast forward to 2025, Vice President JD Vance recently visited Greenland, sparking renewed speculation that the US is positioning itself to secure mining rights. You would have seen that on the TV, for example, that JD Vance and his wife went over to Greenland. Now, they're looking to position themselves for example, to secure the mining rights. The US is already looking at Greenland's infrastructure, possibly preparing to reduce the monopoly that China has on rare, earths, for example. So let's look at this. This is causing geopolitical tensions. So Chinese mining operations, President of China, for example, addressing rare earth stock market charts, for example. So do you think China's going to stay silent in this? It's recently tightened export controls on rare earths, restricting supply to the West, for example. So Greenland itself is caught in the middle. Its government favors autonomy, but also it feels under pressure possibly from both superpowers. So who's going to win this rare earth race, for example? Imagine there's Greenland's rare earth. This could fuel the next generation of AI, electronic vehicles, and military tech, and much more, for example. If the US secures Greenland's missing rights, for example, it could also challenge China's dominance and reshape the global economy. However, Greenland has strong environmental restrictions, and the local opposition could block that large-scale mining, for example. They've showed with JD Vance and his wife coming over to Greenland that they really was not interested in them trying to put forward this deal, for example. They didn't really stand much of a chance either. And you know what? We have got to look at all of these different things, and every country has their own right to their land. So what are the investment opportunities in rare earth stocks? Now, investors, you can be looking at the profits from these rare earth stocks because there's multiple options that you can do. But I'm not a financial advisor, and I always say that you should always seek financial advice. I'm just here to talk to you from what I've been researching, what I've been learning, what I've been reading about. At the weekends, I usually read a whole book, for example. So I'm doing a lot more reading in terms of this because it fascinates me to know about the history across the world, globally. So there's Greenland mining stocks, Greenland Minerals Limited, also GGGAX, and Tanbreez Mining are two major players here, exploring Greenland's resources. So there's global rare earth companies like MP and also Rare Earths, LYCAX, are major suppliers outside of China. So there's the rare earth, which is the ETFs. Now listen, I always say to have things in your hand. The physical product is a lot more stronger than having something on paper. because you don't know whether you've actually got it, and that it could be with someone else or in another country, and you might not be able to get to it as quickly as you want to, because it can take months now due to the surge and the demand for gold, for example, as well as silver. So as the rare earth battles, it intensifies, and us as investors should really watch these companies to see what the potential gains are. So get engaged with this, have a look, do your research. By all means, speak with a financial advisor that will be able to give you the correct advice, for example, about investing in stocks and shares, because I am not a financial advisor, for example. So, is the US setting up a takeover of Greenland, its rare earth? Or will Greenland hold its ground and let us know that it is not going to back down? It wants to own its own rare minerals and rare earth because it is precious to them. So don't forget to like and subscribe for more geopolitical deep dives, and I'll be discussing in the next video some more information regarding the mines as well, because this is part of a 10-part series, for example, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are regarding this. What do you think about how Greenland was approached by JD Vance, for example? What do you think? Because I would love to know your thoughts on it, because at the end of the day, it's their country, they own it, they want to be in control. They don't want to be taken over and then suddenly they're not in control of their own mine, for example. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know, do you think that Greenland has more gold than Fort Knox? I'd love to know what your thoughts are regarding that. Also, why do you think that when they went to Greenland that there's been a pushback, a real big pushback to say no, this is our country, we're fine? What do you think about that as well? Because it is a very, very wealthy country. 4.7 trillion of rare earth minerals. That's huge. $211 million of gold mines, and they've got it's rare earth. So what do you think about that? Do you think that Donald Trump wants Greenland because of its gold? Or do you think it's because they want to protect them, genuinely protect them, be an ally with them? Is it because of the amount of gold mine that they have? The 4.7 trillion. Or are they genuine? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments here. Because years ago, Trump did want to buy Greenland's gold mine. I believe in 2019, for example. So what do you think? I would love to hear your comments, for example. Just let me know in the chat here, because Trump wanting Greenland's gold mines, their gold reserves, is of big interest to Trump, and he hasn't denied that. He has said, I've got a desire for this, for Greenland. And I'm sure that you know that Greenland is rich in gold, or maybe you don't know. And US gold mining, for example, in Greenland, just do some research on that and tell me what you find. So there is some investment potential here, and I'm going to put some links here, but I need to wait for the video to render, for example. And what I want you to think about is the rare earth minerals that Greenland has, that makes it so that USA gets on a plane to come and talk to Greenland about working with them, for example, or is that taking over? I'd love to know your thoughts on that, because I find all of this fascinating. But for you, as an investor, as a person, as the public, for example, it's time that we start to be aware of this and start investing for ourselves. Because gold is at the price that it is due to the demand, but silver is going to become a stronger contender because it's used more, it's dual purpose. It is in, the stocks are being depleted to the point where the demand, there's not enough to meet the demand. So therefore the natural progression is that silver will go up in price. They say once it reaches $50 per ounce, then it's going to skyrocket. It's currently at $35 per ounce. And silver is like the tortoise, I see it as that. The tortoise that wins the race. Although gold is ahead, silver is still following, pulling it along, for example. And like I said, the tortoise and the hare, for example. If you haven't read that storyline, it's a children's storyline, read about it, for example. They also use it in terms of when you're doing teamwork as well. So there's lots of ways to look at the tortoise and the hare, but I'm describing silver as the tortoise and gold as the hare, for example. And gold is way up here. And that's because of inflation, that's because of the cash, the currency, the tariffs, the inflation rates. There's all of these different things and the demand. So it's making people, whereby it's making the government, it's making the family offices, it's making the central banks, the reserves, the gold reserves, etc. It's making them panic. So they're wanting to have this gold and silver in their physical possession, not on paper, because they don't know when that's going to come to them. That's why I'm sure you still want to know what is going on in Fort Knox, because we haven't heard what the outcome is from Fort Knox, because if America had all of the gold, for example, same with the UK, for example, would there be such a big difficulty going on right now? So that's why it's important to see what the gold is in Fort Knox, so that put everything together so that it could possibly wipe out the debt, a big part of it. So, it's looking at what these mines have, and Donald Trump and JD Vance, checking it out to see about being friendly, for example, and what they can do, for example, but also it's not really waiting for Greenland to say, hey, look, let's partner, let's work together, I want to hear from you. From what I saw, I just saw them going in and not waiting to be invited in for discussions in that way. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video today, and what I want to ask you is that question: has Trump's Greenland gold dream failed? Comment yes or no, for example, and join me live tomorrow, because I will be going live tomorrow as well, where I'm going to be traveling to another mine. But the Greenland mine is beautiful, just beautiful to look at, not even to be dug at, but just beautiful as it is. And they own it, so why should they not keep it? So thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to share with you the visit to Greenland and what happened and why it happened, for example, because at the end of the day, Greenland has got 211 million rare earth mines, for example, that hold this amazing amount of gold and precious metals, for example. So, and it's not very often that you get that around the world, so that's why they're standing out more than the UK, for example. And Lima, which is LBMA, for example, they're flying over the gold and silver that they have to America and around the world, because people, governments, central banks, etc., they're asking for their gold back. So there's a massive shortage going on, and they're panicking because they're thinking, well, we need our gold back in case we run out of gold, so we need to stop stockpiling and building up on our gold. China has been building up on their gold for like 10 years, for example, but we're just starting to do this now. And if you are able to even buy a coin, one coin a month, for example, whether it's gold or silver, whatever it is you can afford, build up your reserves that way. You become the Fort Knox, because you can't touch the Fort Knox anyway. So why not build your own Fort Knox so that you're looking at your future, i.e. your pensions? Because the way things are, the pension is going to be reduced in some way. Not sure how much, but it has happened before where people have lost their pensions because of inflation, because of the recession, and because they've invested it into something that didn't work out, for example. So the reason why I'm talking so much about this is so that you can start thinking about building your silver, getting silver coins or getting gold coins or gold bars or silver bars. I've always explained as well, in 2007 we were doing scrap gold parties, silver and gold. That is another way of getting your silver and gold together, for example, and then turn it into going to a refinery, and then they will smelt it down for you, for example. And you'd be amazed because you can actually get it even sometimes 30% less than what the spot price is, because you're doing scrap gold, broken jewelry, for example, a missing earring, there's not a pair anymore. So thank you so much for joining me. And I also want to say thank you for your likes, thank you for your comments, thank you for subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell, because then you'll get an update for when I'm going live, so that you'll know, really just keeping you updated, and also opening up our minds to not just think, oh, I'll get gold and silver, but some of you don't know about this gold and silver that's happening and that's being brought by our government in such large amounts that it's tons, not even ounces. So they're buying up and we're not aware of this, and it's time for us to wake up, because the inflation is, the paper money is not going to take us very far. It is the precious metals that is going to take us far, and silver is becoming the tortoise that wins the race. So I hope that you've enjoyed today. There are some links there. You can check out some of the links there on my description, so that you can see for yourself about gold and silver, what the prices are currently at the moment. Because like I said, once that silver hits $50 per ounce, according to the experts, then it's going to skyrocket. So now is the time to get it. You don't want it to be like how gold is per ounce at $3,050, for example, because that's, you're buying it at its peak. And yes, it looks like it's going to increase because of the inflation, because of the tariffs, because of all the wars, all the different things are making things go up. For example, that's why the gold has gone up so much. But you notice the currency, the cash, isn't going up, it's going down. So that's why the gold is going up, because it always holds its value. Same with silver, will hold its value as well. Look, Warren Buffett, he invested in silver, 3.5 tons, and he also invested in Barrick Gold, which was to do with the gold mine. So think about what they're doing and what we can do to control things, to make our lives better for the future, for example, because we don't know how much of a pension we're going to get. People are doing 2 or 3 jobs, for example, because of the cost of living. So you can see that things are going up. Whereas when you get gold and silver, it holds its value, but you've got to look at the 5 or the 10-year plan, whereby you could literally purchase a house if it was gold, for example. So I just wanted to share that with you. Do click the link if you want to have a chat with me, if you want to start a gold silver party, for example, where you're running a business and you're holding it monthly, and you're then going to a professional refinery where you are in the world, for example, and it's being done correctly, for example, then you've then got your savings. You're saving up towards this. Okay, so thank you so much. I've enjoyed speaking with you all tonight, and I do appreciate you, and I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow. But think about why Donald Trump and JD Vance are so interested in Greenland right now. All right, so thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.